You're listening to a podcast from the South China Morning Post.
On almost every travel bucket list, you'll find the typical destinations. Tokyo, Hawaii, Paris, Santorini, Hong Kong, and of course, Bali.
I'm going to Italy, and then I'm going to David's Guru's ashram in India, and I'm going to end the year in Bali.
Bali is known for its gorgeous beaches, epic waves, looming volcanoes, popping nightlife, and its historic Hindu temples. The picturesque island is also a paradise for foodies, and most of its dishes can be found around the rest of Indonesia too. There's nasi goreng, which is Indonesian fried rice. There's a variety of satay, or grilled skewered meats. You can choose from chicken and goat to fish and tofu. But one dish that you can only find in Bali is babi guling. Babi guling is exclusive to Bali, but when you're on the island, it's seemingly everywhere.
As you drive around, you see so many of these places around, and you just have to wonder why do there need to be so many?
I'm Lisa Kam, and this is Eat Drink Asia. Today, I'm going to bring you along on my adventure to discover what makes Balinese cuisine so unique. And there's no dish that epitomizes that more than babi guling.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, but no spoon necessary. I'll be using my face.
For those who've never had the pleasure of trying babi guling, it's a pig that's been spit roasted for several hours.
Little bit hot.
It's so moist.
Now for the real test.
This is my favorite part, the skin.
If that hasn't caused you to salivate yet, babi guling has been ordained as the most succulent ever eaten by the late food legend and icon, Anthony Bourdain.
Okay. No question about it. This is the best pig I've ever had. Absolutely the best.
It's often the suckling pig, which is popular in babi guling.
This is Nicky Castley, who's been living in Bali for around 9 years. He's an events manager, but on the side, he runs an Instagram account named Babi Guling Champion. There, he's been documenting all the babi gulings he's ever eaten in Bali.
They take the whole pig, clean out all the organs, and they stuff it with cassava leaves. Cassava leaves, or in Indonesian, is called singkong.
The pig is then sewn back up in a cylindrical sausage shape, then cooked over a spit roast.
It's rotated for 6 hours at least, 6 hours, and they're basting the outside of the skin with coconut water.
When it's finished cooking, they separate the skin from the meat. At this point, the skin has turned really crispy. But for the meat,
sometimes the meat is not fully cooked.
So they cook the meat again with a Balinese blend of herbs and spices called
basa gede, which is a mix of galangal, ginger, turmeric, chili, shallots.
When that's finished cooking, it's served together with pork skin. The skin of babi guling is a little bit different from what we have in Hong Kong. Of course, we roast our pigs too in a huge oven. We do ours vertically opened because the spice is already rubbed into the rib cage. But in Bali, they baste it in coconut water continuously for the 5-6 hours. They don't score the skin, so you don't get that bubbly, wafery texture that we're used to with the Chinese roast pork, but more of a thin, glacier-like crisp. The sugar in the coconut water caramelizes it a little stronger, and the chemical reaction of the sugar also makes it extra crispy. The skin is also attached to fat that comes through at the bottom, but essentially it's 2 layers and not wafered through like the way we have it in Hong Kong. Nikki, what made you want to start an Instagram account for babi guling? Of all the Balinese dishes, why this one?
Before I moved to Bali, I was living in Jakarta, and as you know, Jakarta is a primarily Muslim population, and pork is not a big thing there. But over in Bali, where it's a Hindu population, pork is quite prevalent. So always on my holidays from Jakarta, I would try different babi guling places, and it just kind of continued from there. And after I moved here, I just had all the opportunity to try.
How many different babi guling spots have you tried so far?
I mean, the Instagram account and writing the stories and documenting it all was where I started counting it a lot more seriously. I do have a lot of other records that I haven't quite formatted yet. And I would say upwards around 50 or 60 I've tried.
Eating 50 to 60 different babi guling restaurants sounds like a lot, at least to me. But Nicky said he's nowhere close to trying all that Bali has to offer yet.
And there's probably at least, I don't know, 180 different of these places on the island. The island is quite big, as you can imagine, and these places are really everywhere.
When I was in Bali, I found it in particular abundance in Ubud, which is more of a staycation area compared to somewhere like Seminyak, which has a lot of beachside resorts. Ubud has a lot more cool coffee shops, yoga studios. So it's definitely a lot more gentrified. But at the same time, I guess the same crowd, when they feel like some meat, they're going to want babi guling. That is what it's most famous for. You would think that somewhere that continuously sells roast pork would have the fumes of barbecue in the air, but actually no. They start roasting these pigs at 5 a.m. in the morning, and they're basically done before lunchtime.
As you drive around, you see like so many of these places around, and you just have to wonder, like, how can they all be so different and exist at the same time? And what is it that, like, why do there need to be so many?
Babi guling is a ubiquitous dish in Bali, but after trying his fair share of the dish, Nicky has come to learn that each shop is a bit different from the next. Yes, each plate of babi guling features crispy pork skin and flavorful pork meat. But babi guling is also served alongside an array of toppings, and this is where each shop stand out against its competitors.
I mean, I'm always impressed when they have like a massive amount of different elements. Like I think Chandra or Sanur would have 8 or 9 different elements, and sometimes even 12. And that could be 2 like different types of satay that comes with it. There'll be a satay lilit or just a satay babi. Rib meat, which is they'll kind of cook the rib meat separately. Sometimes they do this twice cooked skin, so the roast skin is removed and then fried again.
The toppings or side dishes are seemingly endless. Some shops also serve it with a vegetable mix called lawa, which includes snake beans and coconut. Some shops serve their babi guling with pork floss. But Nicky said if you're a foreigner, you might be missing out on a few items without even knowing.
Sometimes if you're a foreigner and you ask for the everything plate, they'll just like leave a few things off that like they know only the locals like. And one of these is this kind of like blood sausage. And also the pieces of the liver. Like sometimes the foreigners are like, yeah, but the locals really get into the different organ parts.
When you go to a new babi guling shop or babi guling warung, as they're called in Bali, what do you look for? What are some signs that the babi guling that you're about to eat will be a delicious one?
I like to see the skin mostly. Like it's like a little cherry on top of it. If it's gonna be really crunchy or something you're gonna have to like chew through, like how much fat they've left on it, because the fat is like really the flavor of this dish. But one of the underlying factors of how good a dish can be is how fresh it is. Most often the best babi guling you'll find is the one that's closest to you. A lot of these small warungs don't really have any like refrigeration or cooling, and often the days can get very hot in Bali. And if you know anything about food safety and hygiene, then you know that you want to get it fresh before it's sitting out for too long.
Serving the freshest babi guling also means only cooking what you're able to sell in one day.
They often don't like overcook too much of the pig. So when it's sold out, it's just kind of sold out. There's just no more. And you have to go to the next place.
Nicky, how often do you actually eat babi guling?
I like to try to find a new place every week or every 2 weeks. With like a complete diet and exercise program, you need to work off this extra rice and the fats. So it kind of depends on how good I've been at hitting my workouts and stuff like that.
When you eat Bali roast pork, is it like a casual weekday meal for you, or is it a dish that's reserved for special occasions?
Well, it's funny you mention that, because the Balinese also are going to these places usually after the ceremony. After the ceremony, you'll see like a lot of Balinese in their ceremonial clothes, like all in white usually. I like to follow this after like a cremation or something like this. You're usually there with your friends anyway, and you can go and take part in this.
I somehow feel that babi guling, or like the roast pork on a spit, and the Chinese suckling pig for ceremonies is kind of like similar. How it is only used for ceremonies. In Chinese culture, we use it for a wedding or the opening of a new company. Ceremonies like that. It is communal. It is roasted in advance. And we actually all look forward to it. It's delicious. Of course, it's roasted whole with the same sentiment that you give something whole as an offering to the gods. And when I was in Bali and I spoke to Ibuoka, where the late Mr. Bourdain went to, the matriarch of the family recalled how they were selling it in the markets as a service. Anybody that's having a ceremony or a wedding that day would go to them in the market and order one, and she was in charge of helping deliver it. It wasn't until the Balinese royal family approached them and asked them to open a shop because they loved it so much and they want their friends to be able to try it when they're in town, did she actually open the Ibuoka. But somehow I secretly suspect that after the no reservation episode that Anthony Bourdain said it was the best pork he's ever eaten, that this dish became the phenomenon that it is. Nikki, do you think you'll ever get tired of this dish?
There's been a few times in my life where I've had like kind of like vegan moments where it experiments with different types of diets, and I kind of take a break from everything. But what's been happening is that I just come back to it anyways.
It's a ceremonial food. It's a street food. And with Bali's booming tourism business, babi guling is now available in hotels. When I traveled to Bali, I went to Ayana Resort and I met with Chef Ari Wayudi. He runs the hotel's Balinese restaurant, Kampong. Chef Ari, tell me a bit about the concept behind Kampong.
Okay, I will tell you about the Kampung. Kampung Bali is our small village restaurant at Ayana Jimbaran. This is our most authentic Balinese performance.
So, do you want to present the most authentic dishes to your guests here?
Yes, because we know the guests came to the Bali and visit Bali just only looking what is the Bali. Their nature, and we have as well our culture together with our cuisine as well.
When you come to Bali, you told me that there's a lot of the Balinese spice and it's used in a lot of food. What exactly should people be tasting for? What makes a good herb mix?
Our Balinese spice is came from our native farmer. This is galangal, and then we have the ginger, and we have turmeric. All the plant is easy to grow in our home.
So the freshest, most organic ones grown in the home is the best. Is the best one.
The best one.
Would grandmothers and mothers be like kind of competing?
Yes.
You know, your mine is better than yours.
Yes.
Balinese cuisine is all about sharing. It's about eating together with family and friends. Do you have any childhood memories of eating together? What's your favorite thing about eating in a large family with a lot of delicious food?
Yes, of course. Because in Bali, the food is combined together all. We call this one is magibung. This is our concept we want to show to our guests. We can eat together the rice and also the meat as well, and suckling pig. This is our unique icon in Bali.
When you were a kid, which one in front of us was your favorite to eat?
Of course, Balinese suckling pig is our most favorite.
Why did you like it? Why is it your favorite?
Because they have some fatty and they have the crispy texture. I like the flavor, and all is completed by the one whole of the suckling pig.
I've sampled babi guling at several places. Kampong's babi guling, because it's part of a buffet, so they didn't actually use a pig that was that old. It was, I can't gauge the age, I'm not an expert in livestock, but it was definitely smaller than the ones that the babi guling restaurants that are used to serve the mainstream crowds. The one at the mainstream crowds, in my opinion, was a little bit less tender. It's served cold because they finished making it in the mornings, but the sauces that it's cooked in are a lot punchier, more flavorful. Whereas I think at a hotel, they can't gauge the international palate that well, so the sauce and the flavorings are served on the side rather than cooked in afterwards. But the meat was more tender when, of course, with a smaller pig. And of course, I was at a hotel buffet, so there was like a lot of accoutrements that I could have had with it. So I really enjoyed that. Again, I've actually even heard people complain that when they get to go to eat babi guling because they finish roasting it in the mornings, that, oh, it's served cold, it's lying around all day. But if you sit back and think about it, Hong Kong roast meats are served cold. They actually let it sit out for a little bit for the meat to rest before they can cut it up. So I think that one is just a little bit of maybe a cultural bias.
Is it hard to get Balinese food outside of Bali, even if you're in Indonesia?
Maybe for the suckling pig, maybe we can only find it at the Bali because Balinese people is a Hindu. But in other city like Java, it is more Muslim. This is some difficulty to find the pig.
I think I'm not the first one to talk about overtourism in Bali. It is on steroids. It is changing the landscape of just the town. I mean, like I just said, in Ubud, it's very gentrified, cool coffee shops and all that, even though coffee culture is cool in Bali. That's that balance that every government that has to strike in between tourism dollars and their own identity. One thing we did discover that was affected by tourism was that they stopped using their native pigs. That is usually reserved for making babi guling. It looks like a little bit more of a wild boar, a little bit more of a razorback. That pig has been replaced by European pigs because they need to sell more meat. Bali as an island itself and its identity with the rest of Java is quite distinct. At the moment, they're facing the challenge of preserving their own culture, not against the encroachment of the larger island, but much on the tourism that they rely upon. There is a line that needs to be drawn, but then when push comes to shove, do you choose between money or identity?